He's a big mouth, you know, a know-it-all.
Don't listen to him, he's an ink poop.
The guy is a radio genius, but he's got a hell of a lot to learn.
Right, hi everybody, it's Chris 2E0UKH and I'm looking at the settings on the Anytone 878. You might have an 868, most of the settings are the same. I'm going to show you how I've configured mine, customized it, added shortcuts and links, all sorts of stuff to make it easier to use, and we'll also look at some other settings while we're there. Right, so we're looking at the Anytone 878 and I'm just going to show you how I've set up my buttons. I'm trying to, make this like an old school analog radio, where you can go to VFO, change mode, and I've set a short press of P2 to go to VFO mode. So short, just one press goes to VFO mode, and I've set a long press of the P2 to go from analog to digital. I've got it set up in one line mode, so I'm looking for either analog or digital. It cycles through all four: analog, digital, digital and analog, analog and digital. So I don't know why they haven't got just two modes when you're on single line mode. I have asked for that. So long press of the P2 changes mode. That was a single press. Long press. Channel type digital. So that's how I've set up the P2 button. I don't need anything on the P1. I have had record on there before, never used it. I have had digital monitor, but I don't use that. The only other main one I've added, which is of interest, is on the PF1 button. That's the button below the transmit button. If I press that once, got the wrong one because I'm doing it at an angle, 4000 select. While that's on the screen, if the green light's not on and I press transmit, I'll unlink and you'll hear the lady's voice coming back. So I'd wait for the green light to go out. You can see it's on, there's someone talking there. I'm not on the talk group that my hotspot's on, that's why you can't hear them. Incidentally, if I put digital monitor on, you'd hear them. So single press of PF1 gives the 4000 command, and you wait for the green light to go out, press transmit, and you'll become unlinked. Right, so I'm in the CPS software. I'm going to read from the radio, checking my COM port is correct. Now, don't see my COM port, so I'm going to pull the USB wire out. If I get any problems, I'd rather show you the problems and how I overcome them. So I've plugged the wire back in, and I know that that is COM port 12. Read from the radio. Do that again. I'm going to pull the wire. I mean, there was no reason why that wouldn't work the first time, but sometimes you've just got to repeat the steps. So I'm trying to show you how I set up the unlink command on the PF1 button. I set up a hotkey So I went to hotkey on the left, and I set up hotkey 1 as a call. I couldn't change this, it's greyed out. It's a digital call, it's a 4000 group call. So I filled in a line like that. So that's hotkey 1. And I went into, well, I did it in optional settings, key functions, and I simply chose PF1 short key, just a one press of it. I selected that as hotkey 1. Now you can have different hotkeys set up for different talk groups. You could have them set up for doing a parrot, a 9990 command. That's how I set up the PF1, and the other settings, I mean, you know, you can play about with this and set them up however you want. The keys, the other keys, you know, P2 short. No, where's that's PF? Need my glasses. P2 short. V stroke M, that's VFO stroke memory mode. That will go from VFO, so you can tune about, back to memory. So P2 long is channel type switch. That means change mode from analog to digital, whatever. So all of these keys you can configure to what you want. If you wanted P1 short press to be digital monitor, you would go to P1, P1 short, and you'd set it to digital monitor in the list. Digital monitor. I mean, you've got quite a choice here. There's not many on there I would use. I mean, the hotkeys are very useful. Digital monitor. Sub-channel switch, you can change it so it turns the bottom line off. So you just have one line like I've got. I always find radios work better when you've got just one line, there's one thing going on, and it does that one thing properly rather than causing problems. So that's quite a lot of customization, and the Anytone 578 has got a ton more than that, a ton more buttons you can use. So this is really customizable. Right, so I've opened up all these menus so you can see them by clicking on the plus sign wherever there's a plus sign. So this is the full menu set on the left, and most of the interesting options are in optional settings. So work mode, display mode, channel. You can have frequency or channel. I like to have the channel name. Memory zone A, that's the zone that the radio always goes to. You can see where it says B, that's greyed out because I've deactivated the sub band. Sub channel mode off, that's where you deactivate it there. So that's how I've got it on single line and in channel mode. Power on mode, you can have custom characters, which I've got. You just type it in these squares, your power on message, or you can have a custom picture. No need for a power on password, that's more for business use, although if you had kids that like keying up on your radio, you could put a password in. Don't recommend that. unless you write it down. I mean, this is an interesting one. Default startup channel. I've got a radio that I use in the car mainly, and I make my default startup channel, I put it on, and I make sure it's a channel for my hotspot. If I have, in my area I've got no repeaters. If you had a local repeater, you could have it set as your local repeater. If I had that on, you can change the startup channel to something you want. Unlink, that's a good channel. I've made a channel which is like what I did on the PF1. I made it a group call 4000, set it as a channel, but I made it as a talk group and I linked that to the channel. And if I key up on that channel, I'll unlink. So I'll just leave that as it is because I'm not going to write it to the radio. So you can do the same startup with startup zone. It will always come on the startup zone ham. I've just called it ham, don't know why. They're all ham, aren't they? Startup GPS test, never use GPS. It does a little sequence at the start if you have that on, I believe. Startup reset, that's important. That enables you to do the MCU reboot. That must be on, because every single time you write a new firmware, you have to initialize the radio, and you can only do that if that is set. I don't use Vox, but you can speak and the radio automatically transmits. Very handy if you've lost the use of your hand or something. Alert tones, I like all them to be off. Display. This is a complicated one. There's lots and lots of stuff in here. I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory in brightness. Auto backlight duration. I don't find it makes any difference whether you've got it on or off. So I leave it on all the time. Backlight delay. Off TX. I've got that to off. Menu exit time. If you go into a menu and alter something, you don't want it to change or disappear off the screen before you've thought of what to do. So I have that on maximum. Time display, not interested in the time. You could have time on if you want. Incidentally, if when you initialize a radio, you can set the time by GPS. You don't have to set it. It will set it, it will set it by GPS. Last caller, the last person that keyed up on that talk group, it will display their call sign. You can turn that on and off. Show both. It can be a bit confusing, so I just have the call sign there. Call display mode. Turn off talk alias. Call sign color. I mean, if I've got it in the car, I find red difficult to see with a black background, so I have it on yellow. This is 1.15 and above, 1.14 and above, I think. Has the colours, the different colours. I put a request into Anytone to change that, to have more colour options, and they very kindly altered the CPS to do that. I do think it needs a menu in the radio similar to this display where you can customise it without going home and connecting it to a computer. Now, this is an annoying one. Call end prompt box. I have this turned off because if you have that on, every time someone keys up, it comes up with an annoying box on the screen telling you someone's keyed up. Display channel number. I've got that on actual channel number. When the radio's on and in channel mode, memory mode, you can type a number and go straight to the channel. You can have sequence number in zone. So I would find that confusing, so I'd rather have the actual channel number. Display current contact on. Standby character color, white. So you've got white or black. That's if you've got a different background. You don't want a black background and white writing and black writing, so you've got a choice for dark and light backgrounds, changing the color of the standby character color. Standby background picture, default. You can have a custom one. Show last call on launch. That's no use to me, but it might be handy if you needed to recall a call sign. Show last call on launch. I've got all these off. Separate display off. Not sure what that is. I mean, it sounds obvious, but channel switching keeps last caller. So I've not tried this, but I would guess if you went from one channel on the clicker knob to another, it will keep the last caller on the screen from where you were. Channel name color, green. Now this is another one. This is brilliant. You've got all these choices, and this also affects the color of the VFO mode. Receive backlight delay, always. I always have these on always. Anything to do with the backlight? What are the choices? So that's display. FM. FM VFO memory. So you can have VFO or memory. This is to do with the FM work channel. 1. FM monitor off. I think these are to do with the FM radio. Not too sure about this one, that's not something I use. VFO scan. If you want to set the radio up as a scanner and pick up security and other things, you can set up a predefined VFO scan range, so start and end. I guess that's for line A. No, it's VHF and UHF. So if you just wanted the ham bands, you could change that 430 to 440, VHF 144 to 146 or whatever. Key functions, we've been through that. Auto repeater. I've not looked into this one fully, but it is possible to have when you key up, when you want to repeat a frequency, because there's only a certain range of the bands which are for repeaters, it will automatically transmit, like on 2 meters, it will automatically transmit 600 lower, 600 kilohertz lower. But that's not something I've done. I need to check out that one. It does look really good. These are just general things. Just looking for anything of interest. Talk out timer off. You need to have the talk out timer. I would put it on maximum 240. Language, English or German. Frequency step. This is when you're in VFO mode. It will, when you move the channel knob up and down, it will go up and down in that amount of kilohertz. You can alter different, that's interesting, different squelch levels for both the A and B bands. You can set a tone burst. Different tone bursts. Some repeaters require, especially older ones, require a tone burst to get you in to activate it. Analog call hold time. I've never changed that. Call channel is maintained. No, I don't use call channel. I mean, I've got them programmed in. Priority zone, you've got priority, just like on scanners. Mute time in 1 minute. Never done that. Choose working mode, amateur radio. Now, you would be amazed the amount of people have emailed me and said, why haven't I got VFO mode? You know, I can't get it in VFO mode. Why have you got, on your videos, why have you got 42 options on your radio in a certain menu and I've only got 3? That's because they've set it to business mode, professional mode. So that's other. You've got record there. I mean, that can be handy. But when you record something, you can't, as far as I know, you cannot record it and then say, you know, keep the file as an MP3 or whatever on your computer. So it stays on the radio. Although I have seen people send a recording to each other. Digital function. I mean, this is quite complicated and something which isn't very understood. Digital hold time. When your radio is set on a digital channel like a repeater or your hotspot, there's a dark blue label that says digital, and if you have got the digital hold on, have you ever noticed it goes turquoise, light blue? That's because the digital hold is on. And this is another thing we asked Anytone to do. These bottom two, I always have these two. These are manual dial. Manual dial is the same as long pressing the 0 button. When you long press the 0 button, you can press the bottom right button on the keyboard to change it from group to private. So you can dial up a talk group that you're not on. You might be on a repeater or a hotspot. Long press the 0 button and you can go to a different talk group. Works on a repeater as well. This is great. You could have a channel in for your local repeater, one channel for slot 1, another channel for slot 2, and you can link it to anywhere in the world, even if you don't have the talk group in. Manual dial private call, private talk group hold. This is when you want to speak. If I was on a talk group, if I was on 2350 just listening, I could type in on the radio a friend of mine's DMR ID, and I could do it on the long press of the 0 button by manual dial, or you can use the manual dial option in the radio. You type in your friend's number, make sure you've pressed the bottom right to make sure it's on private, key up, and you'll be straight through to that person wherever they are. Now, if you don't have this set to infinite, they'll hear you for 2 seconds and then you'll be gone. So I have these on infinite, and then when I've finished I will unlink or clear it. But it depends which radios you're calling. You know, other radios don't have this option, so they might become unlinked because the digital hold for private talk group hold time is not set to infinite. There's not many that are. So the bottom two out of this 4 are for manual dial, and the top 2 are for anything which is not manual dial, which is like a channel. Now, I was looking at my radio the other day and I noticed, you know, the blue symbol that says digital or analog, you know, I noticed it kept going dark blue, and that's because I'd be on a channel, I had 2350 programmed in, I'd key up and it would say, it would go light blue showing a digital hold, and then after 2 seconds it would go dark blue. So it went from turquoise to dark blue, and that's because the digital hold time is set to 2 for group call. I was still on that channel, but the digital hold was not maintained. So that's how I have mine set up. It's a bit of a mouthful. Anything else interesting here? Stun and kill, no. Digital monitor. These are if you wanted to use the radio to unencrypt security and other things. You could have digital monitor on double slot, that gives you a choice of everything, and you could set the digital monitor color code to any and the digital monitor ID to any. Monitor slot hold, I always have that on. If you have them set double slot, any, and on, when in VFO mode, if you're searching past something, you would do that by being in VFO mode. You would press menu, then scan, I think they call it scan, and it would search off in VFO mode. You can also assign it to one of the function buttons like PF1, PF2, if you use it as a scanner a lot. Remote monitor, never used that. SMS format, I've left that there. Volume, I mean, this is really handy. I'm in a block of flats and it blasts out. It can go a bit too loud and wake everyone up. So I have the minimum volume low, so that even if some people are loud, some people are quiet. If someone comes blasting through, it's not going to wake everyone up. And the very quietest is indoor. That's a little bit too quiet, but it makes the maximum volume that you can have low. So some of these Retivis radios, even on the lowest volume, they're too loud. That's because they're lacking this feature. Maximum headphone volume, that's the same again. If you've got very sensitive ears and you don't ever want to be blasted out, you can set it lower. Mic gain, I always have mine on 5. I don't normally have radios on 5, I work my way up, but I found 5 works well because I'm speaking quietly, in a block of flats. Enhanced sound quality, on and off, that doesn't do much. I have found from my experience, one is a bit louder than the other. Doesn't really do a great deal. So that's everything in optional settings. And I'll just go down this list. There was one or two other things I wanted to talk about. We've mentioned the hotkeys. Radio ID list, if I click on that, it gives you a chance to put your radio ID in. That's where you put your DMR name, DMR ID, and then to the side of it you can put the talk alias comment next to it. So I could have my DMR ID, and then on the right of that I could write in Chris 2E0UKH. And that also coincides with talk alias down the bottom here. If I click on talk alias, send talk alias on. That means when I key up, if someone else, I can send the talk alias on. Alias display priority. So it will grab when I'm trying to hear someone and it comes through with their call sign, I'm trying to get their call sign, I can get it to check from the DMR contact list, the DMR database first, contacts first. The other option is air alias, and the reason I do that, you get more details than, name, town, all the things in the DMR database visible first. If that's not there, I have it revert to talk alias. Alias data format. ISO 7. On my other radio, which I use talk alias, I use ISO 8, and that gives more characters, I believe. But that's how I've got talk alias set. You have to turn on talk alias. This is a great feature, because if you don't have all the DMR, if you haven't updated your DMR database for a while, you'll still get call signs coming up, because it takes them over the air, takes them from Brandmeister. Just like D-Star, you get the call signs coming over the air. You can do that on here too. So, bit of a long-winded video and a lot of waffling, but you might have picked up on a few things that you can change yourself that you would find interesting. And have an experiment. Back up your code plug before you do anything major, and then you can go back to it if you muck it all up. Right, 732E0 UKH, back to standby. Phew.